Hello and welcome to the Raw podcast brought to you by the Sunderland Echo. And we're already going to be looking ahead to Saturday's match between Sunderland and Millwall at the Stadium of Light, Sunderland's first game back after the World Cup break. So to find out more about the Lions, we're joined by Alex Grace from Southwark News. Alex, how's things?
Yeah, quite good, thank you. Thanks, Joe. Yourself? I'm a bit croaky
Yeah,
today, though.
just pretty. We were saying before, just off air, that we're pretty glad that England won last night, so that the games don't clash, or that England would have been playing at 3, and that the Millwall Sunderland game is at 12:30. So that's a bit of a relief.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I couldn't be wanting to try and watch that, do all the work that's got to be done, and then try and get ready for England at 3 o'clock. No, I have to say that would have been a nightmare.
Mm. Yeah, it means we can definitely we can focus on the Saturday's game at the Stadium of Light. First game back, obviously, for both sides with 3 weeks without a game. Although I think Millwall, like Sunderland, have been playing a couple of friendlies. Sunderland were out in Dubai in a warm weather training camp, and I think Millwall have been playing a few friendlies as well during the break. So how have they kind of been getting on during the last kind of 3 weeks?
Yeah, we had a friendly with Bromby
Mm-hmm.
last weekend that ended in a 1-1 draw. They had some fans in at the Den as well to try and I think make it feel like a competitive contest, which they've missed obviously with the break. There was a behind closed doors friendly on Tuesday as well. So some more minutes for a lot of players that have been out. Obviously, I think quite a lot of minutes were played for those who hadn't been featuring prior to the World Cup. They had a few injuries, particularly to Sean Hutchinson. So he's had a few minutes in and around both of those games. So that'll be key for Millwall getting back on, and they'll be happy that they've got those minutes into those players, I think.
Mm. Just looking at Millwall's form kind of before the break, they won their last game away at Preston 4-2. Had 2 goalless draws before that, up to 6th in the table. So it looks like it's going pretty well for Gary Rowett's side. So how would you assess their start to the season? Looks like it is a pretty promising start.
It's been a strange one. I mean, the start of it was a bit. Usually, you've seen with Millwall, they've been associated with clean sheets, not conceding goals, and the start of the season was difficult. I mean, they're conceding a fair few goals, especially away from home. But there's been a problem with the away form since the start of last season. It's been a bit difficult. I found it difficult to win away from home. But at home, really strong, really, really strong at home. I think they've got the third best home record in the Championship. Really, really strong. Don't concede many at home. They win a lot of points at home. But I think the big thing's the crowd, isn't it, at home? So that's the big, huge factor. But no, generally since the change to a 4 at the back, started the season playing a 5 at the back, which received quite a lot of criticism at stages because goals were going in. The attacking emphasis wasn't there as much, really struggling to score goals. But no, since they've gone to a 4 at the back, it's changed a lot, actually. Just 1 defeat since then, which come at Huddersfield, but have been really, really solid. They haven't conceded many goals, haven't actually had to do a lot of defending either since going to a 4. They've looked really, really good, really solid, and the fans have been happier with that. And I think that's what's brought the change about. And as you say, up to 6th in the table as well. I think when this fixture was supposed to be played originally, I think they were 14th. So big difference has been made since that formation change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that they've got some really impressive home form there. Away from home, I'm not quite sure what the form is like, but is there a marked difference between kind of how they'll set up at home and away from home, and what's kind of the differences there, perhaps?
They've only won twice away from home this
Okay.
season. One at Bristol City and one at Preston just before the break. Tend to be a lot more cautious away from home, I think, and that's something you see with a lot of teams. Very strong at home, Millwall. They've got the crowd, they've got they play more on the front foot at home than they would do away from home. But in terms of scoring goals, don't score as many away from home. I know I scored 4 in the last time, in the last run out away from home, but generally you don't see Millwall score many away from home. They try to go into a game, try keep a clean sheet, try and nick one on the break. That's how they do it away from home, and sometimes that works out quite well. I think back to some away games last season that worked really well at. I think particularly Coventry just after Christmas. The team had been off with a load of COVID issues, and they managed to get the 1-0 win. Just really dug in, and that's what Millwall tend to do away from home. They really dig in. They really make it difficult and try and be as solid as possible. You think go to a place like Sunderland, big crowd will be there. Raucous home crowd. The aim will be to frustrate. Try and quieten the crowd down, and then that's where Millwall can cause you problems, because you quieten the crowd and they can take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that maybe their strength have been at the back this season. Just looking at the table now, Millwall have only conceded 22 goals. It's one of the better defensive records in the Championship. You mentioned that change as well to a back 4. So who are kind of the key players in this Millwall side that are going to be key for the game on Saturday against Sunderland?
Well, if you look at Zian Fleming, he's got 8 for the season. He scored a hat-trick last time out. He's Millwall's main threat. Has been really, really, really good since he's come into the side. Yeah. Club's new record signing. I mean, they tried to get him in January, but it didn't quite come to plan. So they got him back in the summer window. Really's had to pick up where Jed Wallace left off. He was the big creator for Millwall, wasn't he, over the last 4 or 5 seasons? They lost him to West Brom. Plenty of heated debate about that one, but no, got to give Zian Fleming quite a lot of credit. He's been really good, and he's found his scoring boots as well. I think he's 8 for the season he's got. So he will cause problems for Sunderland if you give him space, you give him time. He will cause danger. As Preston found out, he got a hat-trick against them. Tom Bradshaw has been scoring goals as well. He also got a hat-trick against Watford, which was another game live on Sky Sports. He got a hat-trick in that. And then you got the likes of Sean Hutchinson at the back, Jake Cooper at the back, players dangerous from set pieces. And the Lions, of course, are the most prolific team from set pieces in the league as well. I think it's 14 or 15 goals from set pieces. Have been really, 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 really good from set pieces. And that's an area that they're so strong in. If it's free kicks, corners, you don't want to be giving them away, because if the Lions are on form, particularly from that area, then they will cause so much damage.
That's not great news for Sunderland, who have struggled from set pieces. They've not got a very big side, although they've possibly got some players back. Ellis Sims, the Sunderland striker, came back just before the break, so he's a useful player to have when defending set pieces as well, and possibly could have Adji Elise back, who's an aerial presence. But Sunderland definitely have struggled in kind of that area. So yeah, that's definitely one to keep an eye out on Saturday. One player that Sunderland fans will know a lot about is George Honeyman, former captain of Sunderland, now playing at Millwall. How's he kind of fared this season, and what's kind of the view on him among the Millwall supporters?
It was an interesting start for him, because he started the season as a bit of a regular, because Fleming picked up an injury. So he started the season as a bit of a regular. He had a little spell out on the bench where he wasn't featuring too much. But he's come in, playing now more in that deeper midfield role. And he's been top class. Absolutely. He's a very good player. He's a very good technical player. And he's someone who will get stuck in. And that's what Millwall fans like. They like to see a player get stuck in and give their all to wear the shirt. He opened his account with a goal against, I think it was Coventry. Yeah, it was. He got the equalising goal in that game. I know he's a player who will give 100% every time, and you can't ask for much more than that. You know, if there's one thing that the fans at Millwall ask for, is for players to show 100%, show their willingness to play for the shirt. If you don't win the game, fine, you don't win the game, but at least you're showing a lot of dedication and you're willing to fight. And and that's definitely qualities that he shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was definitely a player that put himself about and gave his all for Sunderland. Just obviously didn't quite work out when he left a couple of seasons ago. But as you said before, Millwall sixth in the table. It is incredibly tight in the Championship. Looking at the table now, Millwall on 31 points, Sunderland on 27. Millwall are sixth, Sunderland are 15th. So only 4 points between the sides. Potentially, if Sunderland win, only 1 point between the sides, and Sunderland are a point off the playoffs. But obviously, if Millwall win, they could catapult up the table as well, up to fourth potentially. This being a game in hand as well, with it being rearranged. So, what's kind of the expectation now at Millwall after 20 games now into the season, currently sitting sixth in a pretty good position? Do fans kind of think they can get in the top six this season?
What do you think? I mean, this is the fourth actually season of Gary Rowett's reign, and to be fair, they've come close every time. I mean, I think it's 8th, 11th, and 9th. I think have been the three.
Yeah, that's what I've got written down.
Have been the three finishes, and each. I think last year we took it to the final game at Bournemouth. And each year they're just showing development each year to get closer to it. And I think if you were to ask Gary Rowett, he would say, yeah, that this year his aim is to get into the top six. But for Millwall, it's always going to be difficult, isn't it? Because of the budget, because of the teams around them, it's always going to be difficult. But what I think they make up for in terms of their lack of money side of it is the effort, is the determination, is the heart, is the passion. And you saw with Luton last year, you know, club that don't have as much money as the teams around them, they did it with heart and passion. You know, they had that led by Nathan Jones. I know now he's moved on, but if you can have someone who can lead your team and lead it with that passion, that dedication and that ability to work hard, then there's no reason you can't do it. I mean, the fans are always wanting to see the team develop. They're always wanting to see the team move forward. And I think from our point of view, it would be, yeah, look, we think this is the year that we could do it. And if you ask the management of the club, I think they would say the same, that this is the year they think in a league that's probably a wide open this year. I don't think there's any team this year that are particularly going to run away with it. You know,
Nice.
Not like your Norwiches and your Fulhams the previous years. But this is the year that it's really open, and I think anybody could do it. And I think you said there, look, Sunderland are 15th coming into the game and only 4 points behind 6th. It's crazy how open this league is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely looking at the teams this season, or from what I've seen, apart from maybe Burnley have perhaps stood out, but Sunderland were 2-0 up against them at half-time and ended up losing the game 4-2. But I don't think, as you say, like last season, there was a Fulham that ran away with it. This season, I think it is very tight. And you mentioned the job that Gary Rowett's done there, some pretty respectable finishes. I'm assuming that's kind of reflected in the way that kind of he's viewed at the Den, and is his stock pretty high there at the minute?
Difficult. If you had this game been played when it was due to be played, I think the fan opinion of Gary Rowett may have been different. Okay. But since he's changed formation, I think since he's shown he can change it, I think the fans have warmed to him again. I mean, look, I think we had rumours a bit of discontent after, I think it was Blackburn away. It was a really poor performance. And that, funny enough, was the last game of the back five. He changed it then for the Rotherham game. And since then, a massive upturn in performances, a massive upturn in creativity and chances created, and a real drop in goals conceded. Look, if you win games, it changes your stock massively. If you lose games, it it changes your stock massively. It's been linked to other jobs and stuff like that, but none of that's ever come to too much stuff from it. I think that's probably the bookies being the bookies, or Twitter being Twitter, in terms of trying to link different coaches to different jobs. But no, look, I don't think you can fault the job he's done. And if you look at it, the 2 years, I mean, his first 2 years really were hampered by COVID, weren't they? He had no fans and stuff like that. And the amount of money that he had to spend was so limited. So no, look, I personally think he's done a very, very good job. And I think the majority of the fan base would say the same. I think he's someone who's been there a long time in terms of football now. Like, you don't get a manager normally that lasts 4 years now, do you really? So if you give a manager time, and you can see the continuity, then you can see what they bring to the table. And I think in all of Gary Rowett's seasons as a manager, particularly when he's managed in the second tier, he's been in and around the playoffs anyway. So no, overall, I would say his stock should be high for the job that he's done.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list now of the longest serving managers in the Championship. Gary Rowett actually second behind Mark Robbins, who's been at Coventry for just under 5 years. Gary Rowett at Millwall 3 years and 1 month. Below that, it's Nigel Pearson, who's 1 year and 9 months at Bristol City. So I saw something the other day that it's crazy how Alex Neil at Stoke is the 13th longest serving manager in the Championship, and he only left Sunderland to go to Stoke in earlier this season. It just shows kind of how quick the turnover is. But Gary Rowett, obviously one of the longest serving managers there at Millwall. But as you said before, good defensive record, changed to a back four, better at home than away from home. So how do you think Millwall are going to approach this game against Sunderland at the Stadium of Light? Do you think they're probably going to sit back and try and hit them on the counter-attack, or how do you think they'll go about it?
I think particularly the opening 20, 25 minutes, look, it will be, look, let's not give anything away.
Yeah.
Let's turn up, let's be solid. It's, there'll be a big crowd there as well, and if that stadium gets going, everyone knows what it's like. It's a terrific stadium. It brings a terrific atmosphere. And to be fair, it's been good to see big crowds turning back up at Sunderland as well. It's a very passionate place, isn't it? So, no, I have to say, I think that first 25 minutes, it will be to try and just make sure we don't give anything away, be solid, do everything you got to do right. And then once the game's settled down, let's see what can happen. Let's see if we can get the ball into the likes of Z and Fleming, see if you can feed it into Tom Bradshaw and try and create some chances and see what goes from there. But I think the majority of it will be the Lions being solid and trying to hit Sunderland on the counter-attack. I think the last time they played at the Stadium of Light, I think it was a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw, yeah. I remember there was some bad goalkeeping errors as well in that game.
Oh, that was awful, wasn't it? Some really horrific goal, and both goalkeepers. Yeah. I mean, I think the 2 free kicks was it 2 free kicks Millwall scored, I think, and the goalkeeper, absolute howler. And then, the equalising goal.
It was 2-2 at the Stadium of Light and 1-1 at the Den.
Yeah, I think the equalising goal for Sunderland in the second half, because it just before, I think Chris Coleman had just been appointed, but he wasn't taking charge of the game. And an equalising goal for Sunderland, I don't know what Jordan Archer was doing. He came out and tried to punch it or something. I don't know what happened. And it ended up in the top corner. It was unbelievable. But yeah, two goalkeepers, I think, best setter in the club's histories.
Yeah, Robin Royton was in goal for Sunderland that day. It was a season that Sunderland fans will want to forget. It was a really dismal,
I'm sure it was.
Season. But yeah, that's the last time that they played that season. It ended with 2 draws. So obviously the latest meeting coming this weekend. So we usually finish, Alex, just by asking our guests, what do we think the score prediction is going to be? How do you think the game's going to go on Saturday?
It's difficult. I'm going to go for a draw. I think both teams, where they've not played
Yeah,
for a
it's quite
while.
hard to predict.
It is hard to say. That I mean, both teams haven't played too much. I don't know what I mean, I don't think Sunderland were in the best of form before the break.
They got a big win just before the break. They won away at
Yeah,
Birmingham 2-1, which
yeah,
was an important one for them.
yeah. I think before that it'd been a difficult run, hadn't it?
Yeah, a
So
bit patchy, yeah.
yeah, and I think the break's done Sunderland well. We're getting their strikers back as well. Like I know when the game was due to be played originally, I think they had no strikers. So no, look, it's going to be key. I think having a striker back is going to be good for Sunderland. But no, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I don't think there's going to be much in it. I think the two teams will. It's two teams that are going to try and look for the same thing, isn't it? So no, I think a 1-1 draw would be a fair result, and would be the one or the safe option, I should say.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's going to be much in the game. I think Sunderland might edge it. We're still not sure kind of who's going to be available. Ellis Sims came back before the World Cup break. He played the game at Birmingham, and we think a couple of the other Sunderland players who were out injured could be back. The likes of Lyndon Gooch, Adji Elise, Dennis Cirkin, we think they're going to be back. Ross Stewart, still not quite sure. Pictures have been back on the grass today. We're recording this on Wednesday, so not sure. I wouldn't expect him to start. Maybe he could play a part off the bench. So that's one to keep an eye on. But as you say, with some kind of key Sunderland players coming back, I think they might edge it. So I'll go 2-1 to Sunderland. But as you said before, not sure there's going to be much in the game. So Alex, thanks a lot for joining us on the latest episode of the Raw podcast. For all the latest Sunderland news, you can head over to the SFC section of the Sunderland Echo website. Tony Mowbray will be speaking to the media on Thursday, so we'll have reaction from that as well as more build-up to Saturday's game. Also, if you don't already know, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Sunderland Echo SAFC on YouTube and press subscribe for all our latest podcasts, fan videos, and press conference clips, and much more as well. We'll, as I said, have more build-up to Saturday's game. And once again, thanks a lot for listening to the Raw podcast.